Good morning, fam. Thank you for tuning in to the Yanagida Podcast Show, where on today's episode, we'll be talking about health, fitness, and leadership. I'm your host, Justin Yanagida, with co-host today of Yanagida Fitness's head coach, Tyler Hultquist. Dang, and today's guest, we have a special guest, Director of Education of the National Personal Training Institute, my coach and mentor, Chris Williams, who has taught me the foundation of just all of our fitness knowledge. And I want to just give a big hand. So, Chris, welcome to the show. How's everything going, Chris?
Thank you for having me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored for the recognition, and I'm so very, very impressed and so very, very proud with what I see you boys in Hawaii doing in terms of health and fitness and promoting fitness, because it is the panacea, in my opinion, to life. It really is.
Dang. Absolutely. And, we have a whole bunch of questions we want to ask you, Chris. And so we were wondering, what is your background for the audience? Like, how did you get started in all this?
Wow. My background started back in 1990. I taught physical education back in 1990 in the high school, which is the equivalent in the British equivalent is at secondary school. So I taught physical education, and then I became involved in personal training. So I started teaching personal training, believe it or not, first of all, to the incarcerated, as well as to the local community in terms of circuit training and just getting the general public healthy. So I started there. I went to England. That's our mother country. So I went there to get my education, both my degree and my 2 masters and my CSCS, my Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. And I continue to teach during the process of having my own business as a freelance personal trainer. And then about 11 years ago, I was fortunate enough to transfer with my wife and then 2 kids to the United States, where I took on the same role as I was doing in the UK as Director of Education for the National Personal Training Institute in Orlando. So I've always been in some way, shape, or form involved in fitness and or sports. So that's a bit of a synopsis, really, of my kind of travels over the last 30 years in a nutshell. I've been at the National Personal Training Institute for the last 11 years, where I've been so very fortunate to come into contact with, but also train some amazing people that has transferred from here in our educational program to the big wide world, because we are an international school. So we train people from all around the world, and they've gone back to their home countries, to their home states, and they've educated their family, their friends, the wider population in health and fitness. And, that's what we're all about. We're about, health and fitness, making people healthy, making people fit. We live longer, we feel good. It improves our self-esteem. It's that collective collaboration of things. When people talk about fitness, it's all about, I want to change the way I look. But often when you change the way you look, you're never really satisfied, and then it becomes an obsession, and it becomes like a psychological disorder. So we try and piece together every entity of one's being to make them whole and to make them satisfied and to make them healthy. That's our mission, and that's my mission for sure.
Holy moly, that's the truth bomb, Chris. And this is why we love you, man. This is like preaching fitness gospel right here. So going back into the origin, before you went to the UK, where was your home country or origin originally?
I am an island boy. I was born and bred on the island of St. Helena. So yes, I lived in the British colony for many, many years. St. Helena, for those of you who don't know, is a very, very small British colony. It's got a population of just under 5,000 people. So pretty much everybody knows everybody, and everybody depends on everybody for survival. So for example, if you don't have any, let's say, sweet potatoes or potatoes at home, you go to your next door neighbor and he or she will give you some. And then when you have some, you will give it back. It's the island life, and that's the way I was brought up, And so everything that I currently have in life, I'm so very, very grateful for, because I was brought up from humble beginnings. I wasn't brought up from deprived beginnings. I was brought up from humble beginnings, but I didn't know any better because everybody around me was in the same situation. So now that I see how far we've traveled in terms of technology, in terms of all the materialistic stuff, in terms of sports science, in terms of fitness, I look back at my humble beginnings, and it gives me the grounding for where I'm currently today. So I'm so very, very grateful for those beginnings, for sure. But island life it is. And
Yeah, island life. You
hey?
see, this is why we clicked. Like we had like that island vibe together, and I just really love that part and the whole humility. That's the one quality that really drew me in when I was with you, Chris. Is I mean, you're a big guy. You're a huge, large human being. You're strong. And I mean, you were outlifting us 19, 20-year-olds, and we're like, what is going on? And but then you're so humble. You're so smart and you're assertive, but then you're equally humble and you carry that humility with you, which is so attractive. And that's why I think a lot of your students, they have that tremendous respect. And I want to just go into where did you train your clients in the past? I know you shared the stories with us, but for the audience, where did you train your clients in the past?
So back in the UK, I started out in a place called David Lloyd Leisure, which is quite an affluent club, and I was very, very successful there until they reconfigured the payment system. So I went from paying a small rent back in those days. It was about £200, which equates to about $400 a month, which was fantastic. It was manageable. But they brought in a new system where they now took 50% of what I was earning. And indeed, when somebody's taken 50% of your hard earnings, of your promotion and of what you are about, it's very, very hard to digest. So I made an informed decision to leave, and a lot of my clients left with me. So I then started to back away from the David Lloyd, and I started to train clients on the outside. So I had mobile fitness, so to speak, a bit like what you guys have nowadays. So I was very versatile, and I was fortunate that a lot of the people came with me. So I then started to also get more involved in sport-specific conditioning. So I trained the London Towers basketball team. I did Crystal Palace Football Club. So I went into different settings to make myself known. And ultimately, in the process, I also continued with my education, because I think in health and fitness and in sports science, you never fully learn all there is to learn. It evolves so very quickly. It changes so very, very quickly. And our job as fitness professionals is to make sure that we keep abreast of the latest and greatest. So we got that great up-to-date information that we can relate to our clients. Nobody wants to be trained by somebody who is not on board with the latest in health concepts, in sports science, in sports medicine. So it's our job to. And so that's kind of where I left it. And then I went into the college educational system over there, because I'd come from education, gone back into education. And I became the program manager for the sport and exercise science department up at a place called Hartford Regional College. And I stayed there for probably about 9 or 10 years before I transferred here. So it's been personal training in whatever way, shape, or form has always been an integral part of my life. And, to date, it has given me richness. And when I say richness, I don't want our audience to misconstrue what I'm saying. My richness is my health. And so as a 50-year-old, I can still run around my 3-year-old, my 13-year-old, and my 20-year-old, and that gives me great pleasure in saying that. But there's nothing that I cannot do with them from a physical standpoint, because I don't smoke, I don't drink. Those are choices that I make, and I'm okay with that. I don't participate in anything that's, untoward. So I live a healthy life, and I do it because I choose to do it and I enjoy to do it. And my family and my students and my friends can also, like me, reap the rewards of it. So it's an all-encompassing scenario as far as I'm concerned.
That is awesome about the family and how you're so committed to your lifestyle, your health and fitness, and that mindset philosophy. And Chris, going into that, I was curious, how did you keep your clients motivated? I know you were sharing that you trained at different areas, and even that when we were there, you shared this one senior elderly woman that you were training with at her home, and you worked with her. How did you keep your people and your clients motivated during tough times?
I think as a personal trainer, first and foremost, when you come into contact with a client, you got to establish a kind of a superficial, so to speak, psychological profile. So you can automatically see who is the intrinsically motivated and who is extrinsically motivated. Now, I'm not for a second suggesting that if you're extrinsically motivated, you don't bother and you don't give that person your all. I see it quite the opposite. If somebody came to me and says, you know what, Chris, I'm only here because my husband or my wife is going to buy me a car if I lose 20 pounds. And that for me is an impetus to say, well, okay, your mindset is very extrinsic right now, or I should say extrinsic in terms of reward base, but I'm going to change. I'm going to change the way you think. And you have come to me, and now I'm going to empower you through my education and my processes to be able to see the true value of health and fitness for what it is, rather than you seeing it as a short-term thing in your life that ends with a reward. So that's my approach. My next approach is this when it comes to keeping clients. And all my clients, to this very day, still get in contact with me. I train clients for 11, 12, 13, 14 years. I mean, that in itself, I think, is a wonderful statement of their commitment. But also, I like to think in some respects, it's also a reflection of how honest I was with them, how straightforward, and how I operated with them. So I always, treat my clients as gold dust. If somebody gives me the opportunity, and if somebody trusts me with their life, okay, then I'm going to do all that I can within my scope of practice as a fitness professional to make sure I deliver the goods. Results in our business is motivation. And one of the key things that people don't recognize is that motivation comes in different forms, in many, many different forms. It's a bit like the word transformation. We as personal trainers and fitness professionals, we're transformers. We're transformers in the regard that we will take somebody who has got psychological issues and get them off medication, and now they are cured to some degree. We will take people who are unhealthy and make them better. We'll take people that was, let's say, biomechanically or mechanically not moving very well because they were in pain, and we will take away the pain. So the word transformation is integral to my belief system as both a motivator and an educator with regards to fitness. And that's how you keep your clients on board. You keep them on board because you get results. And results, like I said, comes in many different forms. A result to you might be a different result to somebody else. But I think we need to get away from results just being aesthetic driven. When you are driven by the obsession to just want to change the way you look. So you look great, but you've got body image dysmorphia, whether you're a man or a woman. I often look at these magazines, boys, and this is what I see. I see us as the general population aspiring to be like the cover girl and boy on that magazine. So we look at that boy on that magazine or that man, and he is absolutely ripped, muscles everywhere, six-pack, but we're looking and aspiring to be like somebody who's probably taken anabolic steroids. So this particular individual has got body image dysmorphia and psychological issues. You look at the lady, a size 0. Oh, we want to be like that, a size 0. But the same lady is probably suffering from anorexia or forms of bulimia or other subtypes. So we clearly need to get out there as fitness professionals, and we clearly need to educate these people that really results is not just about how you look. It's about the total package in terms of your psychology and your overall well-being, to be fair.
I love that, Chris. And that is why you're blowing my mind, Chris. This is this is exactly the reason why we're so thankful to have had you as our instructor, our mentor, and just that figure role in our life when we were 19, 20 years old. With that thought process, like what you were saying, body dysmorphia, bodybuilding, that's the only way to do fitness is bodybuilding. And so I really, really, really appreciate that, because we're going to go into this later, but our book that we authored, Fighting Sickness with Fitness, comes from that philosophy that transformation and health looks different depending on the individual. And I love that. And I know Tyler has some questions. Tyler, what are some questions you wanted to fire away, man? Yeah.
Yeah, hey there, Chris. Good seeing you. One of the questions that I wanted to pass on to you is, if you had a couple words of wisdom, what would you want to pass on to the current and future generations when it comes to not only fitness, health, and mindset, and your philosophy of life itself?
Wow, that is a good question, and it's one that caught me off guard, but I like it. I think first and foremost, recognize this, that you're getting into a profession that's life-changing. I think one of the misconceptions is that you get in this profession to become rich overnight. And it doesn't happen, okay, for the most part. You get into this profession because you want to help people. And within helping people, you got to have that genuine want to help people. So my first word would be, or words would be genuine, because it's not enough of it today. Okay? People will tell you what you want to hear or what you want to see, because it either massages their ego and it makes them feel happy. I'm a straightforward guy. You have the choice to consult with me, and you have an informed choice to either choose me or not as your personal trainer. But in the process, I will always tell you where I stand with you in regards to, are you training hard enough? Are you committed? Are we in this relationship, reciprocal relationship, whereby I'm giving it all, but you're giving me nothing? So be genuine, be honest, okay? But in my opinion, you're talking to the already converted. I'm very, very biased about this profession. So I want people who are going to embrace the new age concepts of training. I want to encourage people to come into this profession and realize that it's not just about, on Mondays, it's chest and biceps, but to realize that, you know what, I want to make people metabolically active. I want to make people lose weight so they don't become obese. They don't have high rates of inflammatory responses. It doesn't lead to heart disease. It doesn't lead to osteoarthritis. You know, God, it doesn't lead to COVID-19. I mean, these are the type of things. We're living in an age now, especially with this pandemic. And let's face it, there are several pandemics happening at the same time. I know COVID-19 gets the recognition, but how about childhood obesity? Is that not a pandemic?
Yes,
how about obesity in the wider population? Is that not a pandemic? Of course it is. And in the process of people being obese, through their choices, for the most part, there are some hormonal issues. I totally understand that. But for the most part, people make a decision not to eat or exercise correctly. And as a consequence, that level of obesity just cascades into a multitude of other things. So make sure when you come on board and you join our profession, make sure that you are genuine, make sure that you're honest, but make sure that you are willing to educate yourself so that you know how to deal with everybody that comes to you for your service. I think that's the key thing. If you come on board and you came to our school and you are already not receptive and very, very cocooned into a one-dimensional axis of what you think it should be, then you're no good to me, because you don't allow me as a teacher you don't allow me to help you. So you got to be open-minded too, okay?
Love that. Oh my goodness, Chris. Dang, genuine honesty, embracing the new age, open-mindedness, metabolically active, and lowering health conditions. Dang, Chris. See, like that could be the closer right there. That was strong stuff. Dang, like.
Thank you, boys.
And I'm just curious, Chris, like a person like you, a man like you, doesn't just happen overnight. What are, we know some of your routines and your rituals when we were there. We're curious. Oh, we love this word and how you say it, the catharsis. It sounds so beautiful with your accent, catharsis. So we're curious, Chris, what are your catharsises at this moment? Do you have some sort of routine that you follow for your own health and fitness currently?
Yeah, I do. And my wife will vouch for this, but within the context of a week, I train myself 5 days a week. That is my catharsis. It still is my catharsis. But away from my profession, I like to go fishing. I like to go to the park with my kids. My middle daughter, who is now 13, she's a pretty good tennis player. So I am now formally employed as the strength and conditioning coach to my daughter, which I am absolutely loving. Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, we'll watch this space, so to speak, but you have to have a catharsis and you have to have a release. I think, you know, no matter what it is, it should be your own personal choice. But in essence, what it does is it helps reduce the stress that's in your life. For example, my wife will say to me, I think you need to go into the gym and train because you seem a little agitated. And she knows my triggers. So I go to the gym for 20, 30 minutes. Okay, I have my own little workout, just with a kettlebell or whatever, and then I'm absolutely fine. So you could consider it a bit of an addiction, I guess, as well. But I'm okay with that. It's an addiction that I prefer to have than not have. Okay, so my catharsis, just like everybody else's, should be individually tailored for their release of what they need and the circumstances that is imposed upon them at that moment in time, for sure. That's what I
Wow.
do.
Love it. And, Chris, one of the things that really caught me when we were at NPTI was there was a point when you were asking us to come work out with you just to kind of see what you do in the morning. Like, oh yeah, this is what I do in the morning. I don't bother my family. I wake up early, I work out, and then I start class, and then I go home and with the kids. And I have so much respect for that, Chris, because back before then, waking up early was like not anything to me. I was like, wait a minute, I'm gonna wake up at 7, rush out of bed, and as a 19, 20-year-old. And I remember this one moment we came in, I think it was like 5:30 or something like that. 5:30, 6 o'clock, and you're already on the elliptical. You're going after it. I'm like, wow. And then you were banging out bench press with a lot of wheels on them, some weights. I'm like, dang, like
Those are the days.
man, this is a role model. And speaking of role model, like, what are your thoughts in terms of like leadership and being an example? Because you certainly embody those qualities from leading by example, having the humility, speaking up when you need to speak up, and just so many great qualities. What are your thoughts on that? Was that something that you innately had or something like you got taught or mentored?
I don't think I ever set out with the kind of concept of ever wanting to be a role model. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really sit down and say, oh, I want to be a role model. I think I'm fortunate that I'm in the position to teach people, and there are people that would like me or love me, and there are people that will hate me, and that's totally their decision. I'm fine either way. But if in the process of me being a teacher of health and fitness, I can also teach you things about life experience, I can teach you things about being a good humanitarian, then I like to do that. And if people want to say, oh, you're a great mentor or whatever the case may be, I am absolutely flattered by that. But I never set out with that. I think it's easier as you get older to kind of be able to decipher the things that's good in life and around you, and then be able to relate that to the people that you come into contact with, as opposed to being younger. And there's no disrespect to being younger, but you don't have the life experience to be able to call back or fall back on experience that previously you had but weren't very good. And so I think it's kind of a life thing, a life experience thing, I think, in my
Wow.
opinion. Well, for me anyway. I do look back,
Yes.
you talk about role models, and I got to be perfectly honest, and I don't know I don't know how this is going to go down with the audience, but there's not
Yeah.
too many people in health and fitness that I fully respect.
Mm.
I just have about a handful of people that I really, really, really wholeheartedly respect, and people that I know. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
people I read loads of literature on people that I don't know, and I fully respect their research. So I don't want to take it out of context. But going back for me, my mentor was Professor Craig Sharp of Brunel University. He was a man that
Mm.
I absolutely adored. And I
Mm-hmm.
adored him because he was a professor. He came over to study human physiology and exercise physiology, I believe back in the 1960s. Formerly, he came from a veterinarian background. And he was one of these people that was so very educated, but so very humble. So when we would go into
Mm.
university and we were sitting in the cafeteria, he would come and sit down with us. He wouldn't associate with his own doctors and professors. He was very, very humble, but he was also very, very willing to divulge his education, his experience, and his information. And there's that non-selfish attitude that I think
Mm.
kind of triggered me to say, I'm going to give you everything that I know. I'm going to relay every experience that I know so that when you guys leave our school, you are not going to replicate any of the things that was adverse to me. And I think
Mm.
that's key.
Wow. And see, like this is the conviction and the heart, Chris, that we could feel when we were there. Like you would really take care of us, you would work with us, you would literally eat lunch with us, sit next to us, talk to us, work out with us, sweat with us. I mean, it was like, wow. I can't even like recall all of the blessings and the memories from the sprints to the working out at the parks to the lunches we had together, the early morning workouts, and just watching how you poured your whole heart into us, and not only us but all the other students as well too. And that is something that is just, I just have so much respect for. And so Tyler, I know you had a couple more questions you wanted to fire away.
Yeah, of course. So one of the things I wanted to ask, in your personal opinion, what is one of the hardest parts about being a personal trainer?
One of the hardest parts about being a personal trainer. Wow. Okay. I think people think that it's a lot of sales involved. And I think people will say, well, do you know what? I love training people, but I find it hard to generate a sale. I don't necessarily agree with that. I gotta be perfectly honest. I think if you've got formal education in this profession, your education and your knowledge when you talk to people will come across in such an eloquent manner, in such an intellectual manner, that in itself will seal the deal. So I think most people find it hard with sales, to be perfectly honest. But like I said, if you have the necessary foundation and education, and when I say education, I mean formal education. I don't mean reading a book and taking an exam, okay? And I have to stress that, because reading a book and taking an exam tells me that you know some stuff. I don't care if you know stuff. I want you to understand stuff. So when you have formal education, what you have is you have the ability to understand, decipher, dilute, and you have the ability to understand its impact on the people that you train. And that's what hands-on education is about. So I'm sorry if I'm, barking up people who've got online certs, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, and welcome to our industry, and we're glad to have you. But there is a clear distinction to be made. So when you are telling me that a formal diploma in a higher education institute is of a lesser value than an online cert, there is something fundamentally wrong with the educational system in this profession, okay?
Wow. Yes, definitely. I couldn't honestly agree with you more on that one. Another thing I wanted to ask you would be a couple, maybe one or two common myths that you've been hearing recently about when it comes to training or nutrition that you might have heard.
There are so many.
So many.
30 years. Oh my goodness. I've heard about, it's quite funny because I've heard these so-called self-professed fitness gurus going on TV and says, yes, what we're going to do is we're going to turn your fat into muscle. And I'm thinking, wow, good luck with that. I mean, really? Fat is fat, muscle is muscle. These are, some of the things. I think one of the other things that are more prominent in England, and that's where we see the cultural differences, is that females over there tend to shy away from doing resistance training more, feeling that they're going to get too bulky and too muscular. I think that's one of the major kind of myths that I saw over there. Another one that I come across quite a lot is don't give kids resistance training because it will stunt their growth. There is no, I mean, that's just complete utter nonsense. From a scientific standpoint, it really, really is. Now, if you said, hey, well, I'm not going to give you heavy weights because it indeed, might cause you to become injured, I can fully understand. But you cannot quantify cause and effect with regards to giving a kid resistance training as to how much it's going to stunt their stature. It's just ludicrous. So those are the primary ones that I often hear for sure.
Dang.
Oh yes. That's really good. I could definitely agree with you on the many common myths when it comes to training, nutrition, the list goes on that I've heard, but also even let's say the lack of education of a lot of people on just like basic anatomy, basic nutrition, basic health. These are things that I'm surprised that a lot of people typically don't know when they're even coming out of college sometimes, because either that they didn't take the course or maybe they just weren't paying attention in health or PE.
Yeah, I think in fairness, and I don't disagree with you at all, but I think when you are in a university or a college system, you typically choose modules that, get you towards your major field of study. And I know, in nearly my 12 years of university, I mean, really, very seldom were you ever in a gym. Very seldom were you ever in a gym doing these different modalities of training. It just doesn't happen as much. That vocational experience really isn't there. And I like to think that maybe at some stage it will, especially in these larger universities that really can accommodate, full gymnasiums and whatever, but it really isn't. Most of the stuff is theoretical base. There might be a little bit of practical application, but there really isn't a lot. So I do understand, I really, really do. I mean, I learned more about our profession after I'd left university. And a lot of it was trial and error and mistakes that, quite frankly, I wouldn't want anybody else to repeat. But it was a learning experience that I can now call on to tell you guys and girls as my students and fellow colleagues, hey, let's not go there because this is going to happen. And so, it's something that I can hand down.
Speaking of that, Chris, like I know you shared with us some of the common things to look out for in the industry. What were some of those things that you would want future fitness professionals to avoid or to avoid making the mistake of?
I think do not be cocooned into a one-dimensional mindset to think I'm just going to train this subgroup. So when people come here, they say, yeah, when I leave here, Chris, I just want to train professional sportsmen and women. But I'm sorry, there's not enough to go around. So if you are coming here with an attitude or a mindset like that, you're not going to be very, very successful. If you look at the very, very small percentage that are sports people, really, they've probably already got their own personal trainers and whatnot. So there's not going to be any for you to train. Embrace the fact that we are the best exercise prescriptionists for the vast general population. Okay?
Oh, exercise prescriptionists for the vast majority. Oh my gosh, Chris.
We are.
Like, I am just like, I'm just like, I don't even know. Like, people, if you guys are listening, I'm just like fanboy right now. My hands are going crazy. I am just in awe of this moment. And,
you haven't got a British flag, have you?
British flag. Hey, represent. And Chris, well, I'm curious. What are your thoughts? Because in Hawaii, well, I'm sure all over the globe too, but particularly on our island and in our state, we're surrounded by a whole bunch of CrossFits. And in fact, we actually have a CrossFit that opened up maybe what, Tyler, 4 or 5 doors down, and they've been there. We have a whole bunch. What are your thoughts on CrossFit? I remember back in 7-8 years ago, we were talking about the dangers of the rhabdomyolysis. I'm curious, what are your thoughts, Chris?
I think in fairness to him, I prefer to have a CrossFitter in my corner any day than somebody who sits on their behind and eat donuts, drink beer and stuff. So I'm going to get that out there. Yeah, absolutely. I think they've also changed and they've evolved, to be fair. I mean, you've got to give credit where credit's due. So their exercising programming is now much more structured than ever before. Okay. I think they are, starting to really get a handle of how they periodize stuff and how they have different tier systems for different categories and abilities. And that in itself, they didn't have when they fought, well, in their foundational years, they didn't have it. And that's why, some research alleged that indeed, people were getting injured and so on and so forth. I mean, that's very, very hard to prove cause and effect once again. But they've come a long way, to be perfectly honest. Back in the day, was I a fan? Well, not by their volume of training that they were doing, not by the fact that their periodization and their load and unload principles and the principles of the general adaptational syndrome, in my opinion, just wasn't there. You can load your body so much, so frequently with such high volume, but ultimately your body will break, okay, if you don't have the foundation from which it's built on. But I think, they've got a lot of things right, to be perfectly honest. And we can take, a lot of value from how they train. If you look at some of the research suggests that their levels of metabolic acidosis or their lactate threshold is some of the highest there is, which means that their blood pH levels stay between 7.35 and 7.45 when they're doing high intensity vigorous activity, whereas everybody else's is going below that threshold, and we're starting to feel that burning sensation. I think back in the day, people used to equate that with lactic acid accumulation. We now know it's called metabolic acidosis, due to the hydrolysis process of an ATP molecule. But things have changed, and I think they've changed with it. In essence, if you get a CrossFitter in your corner, you know that him or her is going to be good at everything, but great at nothing. And that's way, way better than not being good at anything.
Yes. Wow. That is awesome perspective, Chris. Like, oh my gosh. Tyler, well, what was another question you had, man?
Another question I had is, if there was one thing that you could change about how we generally educate people when it comes to the general fitness or nutrition, what would be one thing you feel like you would want to change from your perspective?
I think as teachers, we got to have a better perspective of people's learning styles, how people learn. I think, again, to use this word cocooned, we are very, very one-dimensional. So we as teachers are often not very flexible with how we deliver information. So for example, you're trying to teach somebody how to do a squat exercise, but this particular individual is really not getting it. And so you're doing your tell, show, do, and and this particular individual is still having problems with doing it. So we have to be able to fall back on a multitude of different teaching ideologies, philosophy, whereby we can actually tap in and says, okay, well, this system didn't work for you, but I can teach it to you this way. Okay. If you go back and you look at something called Gardner's multiple intelligences, they will tell you there's a multitude of different ways by which people learn. We often feel that because people can't do something or get a grasp of it, that they're not necessarily the most intelligent, but it's not their fault. It's our inaptability to deliver it in a way and construct it in a way that's best conducive to their learning.
All right, awesome.
Wow.
So a couple other questions I had. For you personally, a lot of times, a lot of your upbringing was very natural, very holistic because of the fact that you were on that island growing up. I had a question. Did you ever have a time when coming to America that you had any difficulties or any kind of like culture shock when you first initially came here?
I think if I'd left St. Helena directly, which has got 4,800 people, to come into America where you have multitude of millions, it would have been. But my transition was from St. Helena to England to do my education and my studies, where I met my wife, we got married and had kids, and then move over here. So I think it kind of laid the foundation and kind of prepared me. I think if you talk to any Brit that kind of immigrated, they said the hardest thing was driving on the wrong side of the road.
I like that. That's the same problem my parents had for moving from Japan to here, driving on the wrong side of the road.
I mean, we are culturally different, though. I mean, our sense of humor, we are culturally different in a multitude of different ways. I make no mistake. But,
Yes.
you know, when you make a decision to come here to live, you embrace the culture and you embrace everything that goes with my family. And I absolutely love it here. You know, we're American for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And then
awesome.
Tyler. Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
I guess one last thing. If there's one thing that you wish you had known at a younger age, would there be anything that comes to mind?
Oh, wow, Tyler, you are pulling them out of the bike today. My goodness.
Yeah.
I hope my memory and my recollection is good. One of the things, I don't think that my education in college many, many years ago, at university many, many years ago, really fully equipped me of how to deal with a multitude of different personalities. When you are dealing with such a diverse culture and spectrum of people, you yourself have to be like a chameleon with regards to your personality traits. You have to be able to change at any moment and any time, given the circumstances that present themselves. So I think when I first came on board way back in the day, I don't think I was fully prepared for that. And you know what? I've been tired more often than not from being psychologically and emotionally tired than from being physically tired. That's the emotional drain that personal training takes on you. And people, I don't think, fully realize that. Because you are you not? You know, people are telling you everything that's transpiring in their life. You are their release mechanism. Whether you want to hear it, whether you want to hear it or not, they're going to tell you because they think it's your job to listen. So, you know, that's why when I first get you guys here, I always say, be prepared to section up your head and your brain. So you compartmentalize different things in different units. Okay.
I remember that.
And you move on. Yeah. I don't think you can repeat on air what I said, but yeah.
Dang, that's so true. You know, I remember you telling us that when maybe right around we were about to graduate and finish, and you were saying like you have to be a people person. And me and Tyler were talking about you have to be a people person. Absolutely. And I remember thinking that like, wow, I wonder what it's gonna be like. And you were 100% correct. Like, I mean, it really is a lot of listening. And it's like, wow. Like you're right, the psychological and emotional side is way more than the actual like physically like demonstrating and So 100% agree. And what you've been saying for the last, 5, 10 years, or for as long as you've been saying that is so true, Chris. And wow. So wrapping up, Chris, I was just wondering. So this is a fun one. The shaka. Were you still holding the shaka correctly?
I'm doing this, boys. I'm not sure if it's right, yeah?
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Feel free to correct my technique at any time. But yeah, I do this. Even my kids do this, okay?
Hey, there we go. Wait, so is shaka an England thing too, or was that just like...
No, it only kind of, I guess it emanated since I met you guys down here, and everybody else is doing this. And I thought, well, that's a boring thing to do, so I started doing this because I'm an island boy too. And then you guys would say, go this way, and I was like, oh, okay. It was just a fun thing to do, yeah.
Absolutely. Love it, Chris.
So I learned from you guys just like you learned from me. It's a reciprocal relationship we have, okay?
Man, that's the humility, Chris. Love it. And so one of the last questions, Chris, we're curious because our motto and our trade is fighting sickness with fitness. And we've helped people who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, people getting off of medication, working with their doctors. It's all of the things that you were talking about, different ages, genders, all that. And I mean, I want to give this back to you because a lot of the thought process and the philosophy, exercise, and mindset come from that, where it's not one dimensional. We have a whole bunch of different tools for different people, modalities. And so we're curious, as our last final question, what does fighting sickness with fitness mean to you, Chris Williams?
It means that fitness is the panacea to life. If I used to ask the audience at hand to get a sheet of paper, write down the word fitness in the very, very center, and then write down everything negative about it, you would struggle. And that's because there is no negative with health and fitness. There ain't none. There might be some exceptions where people become very obsessive, in the case of maybe people who are anorexic and things of that particular nature, but there is no negatives to it. So the fact that you have associated fitness with curing and or preventing and or reducing the risk of all these unsavory diseases that are largely preventable within a contemporary society, to me, is a saving grace. So I'll leave it just like I started by saying that health and fitness, and in our case, fitness, because we're fitness professionals, is the panacea to life. If you don't currently have fitness in your life, then you need to go out and you need to get it now.
Wow.
Because it will give you longevity of life. It'll give you self-fulfillment. It'll increase your self-esteem, your psychology. You feel great about yourself. It'll help your social aspect. It'll help your economical and financial aspect. So there is nothing negative about it.
Holy moly, Chris. That's it right there. That's the mic drop. Boom.
Mic drop, boys.
Oh my goodness. And Chris, I want to just thank you so much for your time and energy and your constant, continual commitment to striving for excellence. That's the one thing you always ingrained in us, continually striving for excellence. And I almost said it in your accent. I love you. That I have so much respect. And I know people are probably thinking like, wow, like just because I truly respect you. And for our audience, I know some of them are probably like, wow, I want to learn more about Chris. Where can our audience find you?
NPTI Florida website.
I
think it's NPTI Fitness Florida. Yeah, that's where you'll find a bit more about me. If not, just go onto my Facebook page on Osteoblast Training LLC. I'm also, that's my field of expertise, is in bone health also, apart from teaching health and fitness, but also in ending, and I'm so very grateful for those kind words, and I'm very, very honored. I really am. But just to let you know this, that the minute that you guys and girls walk through our door, our respect for you are immense. You have made a decision to entrust us with your education and certain aspects of your life. And for that, we are forever grateful. And so when you let us change you, nurture you, and develop you to become who you are today and help in any small way, I think that's just a wonderful thing. And for that, I am very, very privileged to have had you both here. And I'm very, very honored to be on your show today. And I wish you immense and huge success with your own fitness ideologies and principles, because they are sound and they are what is needed.
Dang, Chris, thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Tyler, Serene, thank you also. And thank you guys so much, Chris.
Wonderful.
Man, we gotta come up to Orlando one day. And man, like this is great. Just seeing you, and man, my mind's blown.
Have a reunion. Let's have an early morning workout, hey? NPTI
Hey, there we
Orlando.
go.
How about that?
I'm all for that now. Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's arrange that. Okay.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And
wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank God. God bless, guys. Take care. Hopefully we'll touch base soon. Yeah.